Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor of the 2nd century, also known as the last of the 5 good emperors after Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, and
Antoninus Pius.
During his 19 years of leadership, Aurelius gained a reputation as a philosopher king, founding his beliefs on the teachings of
Stoicism.
The Roman emperor was also diligent in finding his own way of self-improvement.
Stoicism
is an ancient Hellenistic philosophy that teaches one to accept and surrender to what life brings without seeking pleasure or having fear of pain, and to treat others in a fair and respectful manner. Marcus Aurelius wrote personal notes and ideas on Stoic philosophy and spirituality as a source of guidance for himself.
These notes,
originally written in medieval Greek, formed a collection titled Meditations. This book has been revered by many other philosophers over the centuries, and is praised as a real testament to a government of duty and service. Today we continue with Book 2 from Marcus Aurelius' Meditations.
While emphasizing the ephemeral nature of all things,
the wise emperor highlights the importance of focusing on one's power within and respecting the divine reality of the present. Meditations, Book 2. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. If the gods exist, then to abandon human beings is not frightening. The gods would never subject you to harm. And if they don't exist, or don't care what happens to us, what would be the point of living in a world without gods or providence? But they do exist. They do care what happens to us, and everything a person needs to avoid real harm they have placed within him. If there were anything harmful on the other side of death, they would have made sure that the ability to avoid it was within you. If it doesn't harm your character, how can it harm your life? Nature would not have overlooked such dangers through failing to recognize them, or because it saw them but was powerless to prevent or correct them. Nor would it ever, through inability or incompetence, make such a mistake as to let good and bad things happen
indiscriminately
to good and bad alike. But death and life, success and failure, pain and pleasure, wealth and poverty, all these happen to good and bad alike, and they are neither noble nor shameful, and hence neither good nor bad. The speed with which all of them vanish, the objects in the world, and the memory of them in time, and the real nature of all the things our senses experience, especially those that entice us with pleasure or frighten us with pain, or are loudly trumpeted by pride. To understand those things, how stupid, contemptible, grimy, decaying, and dead they are, that is what our intellectual powers are for, and to understand what those people really amount to, whose opinions and voices constitute fame, and what dying is, and that if you look at it in the abstract and break down your imaginary ideas of it by logical analysts, you realize that it's nothing but a process of nature which only children can be afraid of, and not only a process of nature, but a necessary one. And how man grasps God with part of himself he does so, and how that part is conditioned when he does. Nothing is more pathetic than people who run around in circles, delving into the things that lie beneath and conducting investigations into the souls of the people around them, never realizing that all you have to do is to be attentive to the power inside you and worship it sincerely. To worship it is to keep it from being muddied with turmoil and becoming aimless and dissatisfied with nature, divine and human. What is divine deserves our respect because it is good. What is human deserves our affection because it is like us. And our pity too sometimes, for its inability to tell good from bad, as terrible blindness as the kind that can't tell white from black. Even if you are going to live 3,000 more years or 10 times that, remember, you cannot lose another life than the one you're living now, or live another one than the one you're losing. The longest amounts to the same as the shortest. The present is the same for everyone. Its loss is the same for everyone, and it should be clear that a brief instant is all that is lost. For you can't lose either the past or the future. How could you lose what you don't have? Remember two things: that everything has always been the same and keeps recurring, and it makes no difference whether you see the same things reoccur in 100 years or 200
or in an infinite period.
That the longest lived and those who will die soonest lose the same thing. The present is all that they can give up, since that is all you have, and what you do not have, you cannot lose. Everything is just an impression. Monimus the cynic. And the response is obvious enough, but the point is a useful one if you take it for what it's worth. The human soul degrades itself, above all, when it does its best to become an abscess, a kind of detached growth on the world. To be disgruntled at anything that happens is a kind of secession from nature, which comprises the nature of all things. When it turns its back on another person or sets out to do it harm, as the souls of the angry do. When it is overpowered by pleasure or pain. When it puts on a mask and does or says something artificial or false. When it allows its actions and impulses to be without a purpose, to be random and disconnected. Even the smallest things ought to be directed toward a goal. But the goal of rational beings is to follow the rule and law of the most ancient of communities and states. Human life. Duration, momentary. Nature, changeable. Perception, dim. Condition of body, decaying. Soul, spinning around. Fortune, unpredictable. Lasting fame, uncertain. Sum up. The body and its parts are a river, the soul a dream and mist. Life is a journey far from home. Lasting reputation is oblivion. Then what can guide us? Only philosophy, which means making sure that the power within stays safe and free from assault, superior to pleasure and pain, doing nothing randomly or dishonestly and with imposture.
Not dependent
on anyone else's doing something or not doing it. And making sure that it accepts what happens and what it is dealt as coming from the same place it came from. And above all, that it accepts death in a cheerful spirit as nothing but the dissolution of the elements from which each living thing is composed. If it doesn't hurt the individual elements to change continually into one another, why are people afraid of all of them changing and separating? It's a natural thing, and nothing natural is evil. Noble viewers, we thank you for your company on today's program titled from Marcus Aurelius Meditations, Book 2, Part 2 of 2, on Words of Wisdom.